You apologize for things you didn't do. You question your own memory. You leave conversations feeling guilty, confused, and somehow responsible for someone else's behavior. And the worst part, you can't even explain why. This is not a coincidence. This is a system. Someone has programmed you to doubt your own reality, and chances are you don't even know who did it. Manipulators don't attack your confidence directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they rewire your perception until you become your own worst critic. Guilt, shame, confusion. These are their tools. Today, we're going to expose exactly how they do it, the psychological mechanisms, the phrases they use, and most importantly, how to recognize when it's happening to you. Because once you see the pattern, you can never be fooled again. The guilt trap. It starts so subtly you barely notice it. A sigh when you make plans with friends. A comment about how you never have time for them anymore. A disappointed look that makes you feel like you've committed some unspoken crime. This is the guilt trap, and it's one of the most effective manipulation techniques that exists. Here's how it works. The manipulator never directly tells you what to do. That would be controlling, and they know it. Instead, they make you feel bad about your choices until you voluntarily change them. The essence of psychological manipulation is making the victim do your bidding, while believing it was their own idea. You cancel plans. You stop seeing certain friends. You modify your behavior, all while thinking you're just being considerate. The genius of this technique is that you can never accuse them of controlling you. After all, they never told you what to do, did they? They just expressed their feelings. And now you feel like a terrible person for making them feel that way. Your choice, their control. But here's what they never tell you. Their emotional reactions are not your responsibility to manage. But this guilt trap is just the beginning. Because what happens next is far more insidious. Gaslighting 101. That conversation you remember. It never happened. Those words you heard. You misunderstood them. That promise they made. You must be imagining things. This is gaslighting, named after a 1944 film where a husband slowly drives his wife insane by manipulating small elements of her environment and insisting she's imagining things when she notices. The goal is not to win the argument, but to make you question your sanity. Psychologists call this reality manipulation, and it's devastatingly effective because it attacks the foundation of your confidence, your own perception. Here's the pattern. First, they deny that never happened. Then they dismiss. You're being too sensitive, then they deflect. Why do you always bring up the past? And finally, they destroy. You have serious memory problems. Maybe you need help. Confusion. The effect is cumulative. Each small distortion chips away at your certainty until you stop trusting yourself entirely. You start double-checking everything. You apologize preemptively. You defer to their version of events because yours seems so unreliable. Studies show that prolonged gaslighting can actually alter the victim's brain chemistry, creating symptoms similar to anxiety and depression. You're not crazy. You're being systematically dismantled. But gaslighting is just one weapon in their arsenal. And what comes next specifically targets your closest relationships. Isolation tactics. Your friends don't really understand you like I do. Your family has always been toxic. Your coworker is just jealous of you. Notice a pattern. Every person in your life becomes a problem, a threat, or a negative influence except them. This is isolation, and it's not accidental. Abusers don't kidnap their victims. They convince them to walk into the cage willingly. The manipulator positions themselves as the only safe harbor in a dangerous world. Everyone else is unreliable, judgmental, or secretly working against you. Only they truly care. Only they can be trusted. You and them alone. They accomplish this through subtle criticism disguised as concern. Your best friend parties too much. I'm just worried about the influence. Your mother is so controlling. Have you noticed how stressed you are after seeing her? Your therapist doesn't really get you. Maybe you should find someone new. One by one, your support network shrinks, and as it shrinks, your dependency on them grows. This is by design. Isolated victims are easier to control because they have no external perspective, No one to tell them that what's happening isn't normal. A victim without witnesses is a victim without evidence. But even isolation isn't enough for them. They need you to believe something far more damaging. The blame shift. You caught them in a lie and somehow you're the one apologizing. They broke a promise and now they're explaining why you made them do it. They hurt you, and within minutes, you're consoling them about how hard it is to be misunderstood. Welcome to the blame shift, where accountability goes to die. The rules of reality no longer apply here. This technique is so effective because it exploits your own empathy against you. Manipulators know that healthy people take responsibility, feel guilt, and try to see other perspectives. So they weaponize these qualities. The formula is simple. When confronted, immediately become the victim. Express hurt. Cry if necessary. Make them feel like their legitimate grievance is actually an attack. Psychologist Dr. George Simon calls this offensive defense. Instead of defending their behavior, they go on the attack, but disguised as victimhood. You came to address a problem. You leave feeling like the problem. Their crime, your guilt. And here's the cruel irony. The more compassionate you are, the better this works on you. Your ability to see their perspective becomes the chain that binds you. But the blame shift is just set up for something even more destructive. Moving goalposts. You did everything they asked. You changed your behavior. You modified your schedule. You bent over backwards to meet their needs. And it still wasn't enough. The target moved. This is the moving goalpost technique, and it's designed to keep you in a permanent state of failure. You can never win a game where the rules change every time you play. At first, the requests seem reasonable. If you just did this, everything would be better, so you do it. And for a moment, things improve. But then there's something else, and something else. The criteria for success keeps shifting just beyond your reach. The narcissist's goal is not satisfaction. It is eternal pursuit. Here's why this technique is so psychologically devastating. Humans are wired to solve problems. We get dopamine from achieving goals. The moving goalpost hijacks this system, creating an addiction to seeking their approval while ensuring you never actually get it. Almost never quite enough. You become a rat pressing a lever that used to give food, but now only gives it randomly, unpredictably. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, and it's the most powerful conditioning pattern known to behavioral science. Exhaustion. You're not failing. The game is rigged. But even this exhausting cycle serves a deeper purpose that we need to examine. Emotional debt. Remember when they helped you move, when they lent you money, when they stayed up all night listening to your problems. Of course you do. They remind you constantly. This is emotional debt, the manipulation of keeping a running tab of everything they've done for you to be collected whenever you try to establish a boundary. Every gift was actually an invoice. The transaction looks like generosity, but it's actually an investment in future control. Each favor creates an invisible obligation that can be called in at any moment. You want to say no to them. After everything I've done for you, you're setting a boundary. This is how you repay me. Healthy relationships don't keep score, but manipulators are meticulous accountants of every sacrifice, every inconvenience, every moment of their time. And the interest rate is brutal. When someone keeps reminding you of what they did for you, they didn't do it for you. This creates what psychologists call reciprocity pressure, the deeply ingrained human tendency to repay kindness. Gifts that bind you. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize. Genuine kindness doesn't come with conditions. If every favor has strings attached, it was never really a favor at all. You don't owe anyone your well-being as payment for their past generosity. And this debt system connects directly to the next technique. Identity erosion. Who were you before them? What did you believe? What did you want? If you're struggling to remember, that's not an accident. Identity erosion is the gradual dissolution of your sense of self until you become a reflection of their expectations. Slowly, you forget who you were before the mirror started lying. It begins with small criticisms disguised as improvement. You'd look better if you dressed differently. You'd be happier if you had different friends. Your opinions would be more informed if you read what I read. Each suggestion seems helpful, but collectively, they are a systematic dismantling of who you are. Your taste, your views gone. Studies on coercive control show that victims often can't identify their own preferences after prolonged exposure. When asked what music they like, what food they prefer, what they want from life, they draw a blank. Their internal compass has been replaced by a single question: what would they want me to say? Erasure. Dr. Evan Stark, who coined the term coercive control, describes this as the colonization of the self. Your mind becomes occupied territory. The most insidious aspect of abuse is not what they do to you, but what you do to yourself after. You stop being a person and start being a performance. But they're not done yet, because even your rebellion has been anticipated. The silent weapon. No screaming, no arguments, no dramatic confrontation, just silence. Cold, calculated, devastating silence. The silent treatment is often dismissed as immature or passive-aggressive, but in the hands of a skilled manipulator, it's one of the most powerful psychological weapons available. Your existence is being denied. When someone withdraws their attention, acknowledgement, and presence, they're not just being quiet. They're communicating a message. You have done something so terrible that you don't deserve to exist to me right now. Neuroscience has shown that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. The silent treatment literally hurts, and unlike a wound you can see, you can't even be sure it's happening. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they are stressed. Maybe you're overreacting. Their silence, your torture. This is the genius of the technique. It causes pain while being completely deniable. Withholding is a form of abuse. Silence can be violence. And here's the trap. The longer it continues, the more desperate you become to end it. You'll apologize for things you didn't do. You'll accept blame you don't deserve. You'll do anything to make them acknowledge you again. The cruelest prison is the one where you beg for the door to open. But even silence serves a larger pattern that explains everything. The trauma bond. Why don't you just leave? It's the question everyone asks, and it reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how manipulation works. You don't stay because you're weak. You stay because you've been bonded through trauma. The chains are invisible, but they are forged from your own pain. The trauma bond is a psychological attachment created through cycles of abuse and intermittent reinforcement. It works like this. Stress and fear trigger your attachment system. You seek comfort from the nearest available source, which is often the person causing the stress. When they provide relief, your brain floods with bonding hormones. This creates a powerful biochemical addiction to the relationship cycle. The highs feel higher because of the lows. The relief feels like love because it comes after pain. Trauma bonds feel like love because they hijack the same neural circuits. Stockholm Syndrome isn't just for hostages. It happens in relationships, friendships, families, and workplaces every day. Pain, then comfort, repeat. The most painful truth is this. Your loyalty, your attachment, your inability to let go, these are symptoms of programming, not evidence of love. Bonded, but knowing this changes everything. Because now we can talk about what really matters. Breaking free. If you've recognized yourself in anything we've discussed today, here's what you need to know. This is not your fault. These techniques work precisely because you have empathy, conscience, and the desire to be a good person. Manipulators target these qualities because they can be exploited. Your kindness was never the problem, their cruelty was. Breaking free starts with one radical act, trusting yourself again. Your perceptions are valid. Your memories are real. Your feelings matter. The doubt they planted was never evidence of your confusion. It was evidence of their manipulation. Your truth is real. Start documenting. Write down conversations. Save messages. Create external validation for your reality when they try to distort it. Reconnect with the people they isolated you from. Their perspective will remind you of who you were before. The first step toward freedom is calling the cage by its name. Set boundaries without explanation. You don't need their permission or understanding to protect yourself. And if possible, consider professional help. Someone trained in recognizing these patterns can accelerate your healing dramatically. The manipulation wasn't love, the confusion wasn't your fault, and the person they told you that you were, that was never really you. Freedom. You deserve relationships that don't require you to lose yourself to maintain them. Manipulators succeed because they are patient. They don't break you in a day. They chip away piece by piece until you do their work for them. You criticize yourself. You doubt yourself. You isolate yourself. And all the while you think you're the problem, their voice in your head. But here's what they never want you to discover. The moment you see the pattern, their power dissolves. Manipulation only works in the dark. Once illuminated, it becomes obvious, even clumsy. The guilt trap loses its grip when you recognize it. The gaslighting fails when you trust your own memory. The isolation crumbles when you reconnect with people who actually care about you. Awareness is the first and most powerful act of rebellion. You were never broken. You were being broken systematically by someone who needed you to be small so they could feel big. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's not family. That's control. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And starting today, that consent is revoked. You're not the problem. You never were. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe for more psychology that changes how you see yourself. Until next time, keep exploring your psyche.